June 6, 1944. The sky above Normandy is still dark. Inside a concrete bunker, a German soldier looks toward the ocean. At first, he sees nothing. Then suddenly, the horizon begins to change. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Then thousands. The largest invasion fleet in human history is coming. But for the soldiers on the beach, this is not history. This is the moment they realize the war has finally arrived. If you think this moment must have been terrifying, comment number 1 below. For years, Germany had been preparing for this moment. Hitler ordered the construction of a massive defense system. It was called the Atlantic Wall. Thousands of bunkers, machine gun nests, heavy artillery, stretching across the entire western coast of Europe. The soldiers stationed here believed one thing. If the Allies came, they would stop them at the beach. Do you think the Atlantic Wall was strong enough? Comment number 2 if you think it was powerful. The night before the invasion was strangely quiet. Some soldiers smoked cigarettes. Others tried to sleep. The sound of waves hitting the beach echoed through the bunkers. Many believed the invasion would happen near Calais, not Normandy. History was about to prove them wrong. If you think war is often full of surprises, comment number 3. Shortly after midnight, the sky filled with aircraft. Thousands of Allied paratroopers jumped behind German lines. At first, many soldiers thought it was just another air raid. But something felt different. The scale was enormous. The invasion had begun. If you were a soldier that night, would you feel fear? Comment number 4. At sunrise, German soldiers looked toward the sea. What they saw was unbelievable. Ships. Ships everywhere. Destroyers. Battleships. Landing crafts. The entire ocean was filled with steel. It was the largest naval invasion ever attempted. If you saw this fleet in real life, what would you think? Comment number 5. Then the bombardment began. Naval guns opened fire. Massive explosions shook the coastline. The bunkers trembled. Sand and smoke filled the air. Communication lines were destroyed. Orders became chaotic. For the soldiers inside the bunkers, it felt like the world was collapsing. If you think this must have been overwhelming, comment number 6. Soon, the landing crafts approached the beaches. Through smoke and explosions, German soldiers saw hundreds of Allied troops. Machine guns opened fire. Artillery crews rushed into position. The battle for Normandy had begun. If you were there, would you fight or run? Comment number 7. By the end of the day, the Allies had secured a foothold in Normandy. For Nazi Germany, this was the beginning of the end. The invasion of Europe had begun. And the war would never be the same again. History is not just about dates and battles. It is about the people who lived through those moments. The soldiers. The civilians. The stories that shaped our world. If you want to see more hidden perspectives of history, comment number 9. And tell us which war story we should explore next. As the landing crafts reached the shore, the battle exploded. Machine guns fired from the bunkers. German soldiers watched as waves of Allied troops ran through the smoke and water. Some fell immediately. Others kept moving forward. The beach turned into chaos. Explosions. Gunfire. Screams. For the soldiers defending the coast, every second felt like survival. Many German soldiers were surprised. They expected the Allied soldiers to retreat under heavy fire. But something strange happened. The Allied troops kept moving forward. Even under machine gun fire. Even under artillery. Step by step, they pushed toward the bunkers. Inside the bunkers, German soldiers could feel the pressure rising. Communication lines were broken. Some units had no orders. Others were completely isolated. They didn't know how many enemies were coming toward them. Only one thing was certain. The invasion was much bigger than anyone expected. If you were in that bunker, would you feel fear? Comment number 3. Slowly, the situation began to change. Allied troops started breaking through parts of the German defenses. Some bunkers were destroyed. Others were surrounded. German soldiers realized they could not stop the invasion everywhere. The line was breaking. By the afternoon, many German soldiers understood the truth. This was not just a raid. This was the full invasion of Europe. Thousands of ships. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers. An unstoppable force was landing on the beaches of Normandy. As the sun began to set, the Allies had secured several beachheads. The German defenses were still fighting, but the invasion could no longer be stopped. D-Day had succeeded, and the war in Europe had entered its final chapter. History is full of hidden perspectives. Stories that are rarely told. Stories from soldiers who stood on the front lines. Now we want to ask you something. Which perspective should we explore next? American soldiers? British paratroopers? Or civilians living in Normandy? Because the next story might be even more shocking. What civilians in Normandy saw during the invasion will surprise you. If you want to see that story next, comment number 9. The Allied commanders knew the invasion would be incredibly risky. To succeed, they needed surprise. Months before D-Day, they launched a massive deception campaign called Operation Fortitude. Fake armies were created. Inflatable tanks. Wooden airplanes. False radio signals. All of it was designed to convince Germany that the invasion would happen at Calais, not Normandy. And it worked. Even on the morning of D-Day, many German commanders believed Normandy was only a diversion. Among the 5 landing beaches, one became infamous. Omaha Beach. American soldiers faced the strongest German defenses there. High cliffs overlooked the beach. Machine gun nests were hidden in bunkers. Artillery covered the entire shoreline. When the landing crafts opened, American soldiers ran directly into heavy gunfire. Within minutes, the beach turned into chaos. Many soldiers were pinned down in the sand. Others struggled through water under relentless fire. For hours, the outcome of Omaha Beach was uncertain. German soldiers defending Normandy relied on a simple strategy. Stop the enemy at the beach. If the Allies established a foothold, it would become almost impossible to push them back. The Atlantic Wall defenses included minefields, anti-tank obstacles, barbed wire, hidden artillery. Many German units fought fiercely to hold their positions. Some bunkers fired until their ammunition ran out. Others continued fighting even after being surrounded. While the battle raged on the beaches, another fight was happening behind German lines. Thousands of Allied paratroopers had landed during the night. Their mission was dangerous. Destroy bridges. Capture key roads. Delay German reinforcements. These airborne troops played a crucial role in the success of D-Day. Without them, German armored divisions might have reached the beaches much faster. By the afternoon of June 6, German commanders realized the invasion was real. They began organizing counterattacks. Panzer divisions were ordered to move toward Normandy. But there was a problem. Allied air superiority dominated the skies. Fighter bombers attacked German convoys. Bridges were destroyed. Roads were bombed. German reinforcements moved slowly and suffered heavy losses. By nightfall, the Allies had secured several beachheads. More troops continued arriving. Supplies poured onto the beaches. The invasion had succeeded. But the battle for Normandy had only just begun. Over the next 2 months, some of the fiercest fighting in World War II would take place across the French countryside. When the sun set on June 6, 1944, the Allies had achieved their first objective. They had landed in Normandy. But D-Day was only the beginning. What followed was one of the most brutal and exhausting campaigns of World War II. The Battle of Normandy would last 77 days, turning the peaceful countryside of France into a massive battlefield. Every village, every field, every road became a place of intense fighting. The terrain of Normandy created a nightmare for both sides. The region was filled with bocage. Bocage was a landscape of small fields surrounded by thick hedgerows and dirt banks. These natural barriers made it extremely difficult for tanks to move. They also created perfect defensive positions for German soldiers. Every hedge could hide a machine gun. Every field could become a deadly trap. The advance of Allied forces slowed dramatically. German commanders quickly brought in their strongest units. Elite panzer divisions moved toward Normandy. These included the 12th SS Panzer Division, the Panzer Lehr Division, and the feared 2nd SS Panzer Division. German tanks and infantry launched fierce counterattacks. Some battles lasted for days. Both sides suffered heavy casualties. The fighting was brutal and relentless. One of the most important objectives for the Allies was the city of Caen. The city controlled key roads in Normandy. British and Canadian forces attempted to capture Caen shortly after D-Day. But German forces defended it fiercely. The battle for Caen lasted for weeks. The city was heavily bombed. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed. When Caen finally fell, much of it had been reduced to ruins. By late July 1944, the Allies needed a breakthrough. The American forces launched Operation Cobra. Thousands of bombers attacked German defensive lines. The massive bombardment shattered German positions. Then American troops pushed forward. For the first time since D-Day, the German front line began to collapse. The Allied armies started moving rapidly across France. The final stage of the Normandy campaign happened near Falaise. Allied forces surrounded a large German army. Thousands of German soldiers were trapped. The battle became chaotic. Columns of destroyed tanks and vehicles filled the roads. When the battle ended, the German army in Normandy had been devastated. This marked the end of the 77-day Battle of Normandy. After the victory in Normandy, the path to Paris was open. Allied armies moved quickly across France. Only a few weeks later, Paris was liberated. The success of D-Day and the Battle of Normandy had changed the course of the war in Europe. The fall of Nazi Germany was now only a matter of time. By August 1944, the situation in Normandy had become disastrous for Germany. The German army was collapsing. Thousands of soldiers were trapped in what would soon be called the Falaise Pocket. Reports from the front lines reached Hitler's headquarters. They all carried the same message. The Allied forces had broken through. Normandy was lost. When Hitler heard the news, witnesses described him as furious. For him, losing Normandy meant something far worse than just losing a battle. It meant the Western Front had been opened. Many German generals advised a strategic retreat. They wanted to pull the army back and form a new defensive line. But Hitler refused. He believed that retreat meant defeat. Instead, he ordered his commanders to hold their positions at all costs. Even when German units were surrounded. Even when supplies were running out. This decision would prove disastrous. The worst disaster came near the town of Falaise. Allied forces surrounded a large portion of the German army. Tens of thousands of soldiers were trapped. The roads were filled with destroyed tanks, trucks, and artillery. Allied aircraft constantly attacked the retreating German forces. The battlefield became a graveyard of vehicles and soldiers. When the fighting ended, the German army in Normandy had been shattered. After the defeat, Hitler blamed his generals. He accused them of weakness and incompetence. Some commanders were dismissed. Others were replaced. But many historians believe the disaster in Normandy was largely caused by Hitler himself. His refusal to allow retreat had trapped large parts of the German army. The loss of Normandy changed the course of the war. Allied forces began advancing rapidly across France. Only weeks later, Paris would be liberated. Germany was now fighting on two massive fronts. In the east, the Soviet Union was advancing toward Germany. In the west, the Allies were pushing deeper into Europe. For Nazi Germany, the defeat in Normandy marked the beginning of the end. After the German defeat in Normandy, the Allied armies began advancing rapidly across France. German forces were retreating. Cities and villages were being liberated one after another. But one city mattered more than any other: Paris. For 4 long years, the capital of France had been under Nazi occupation. Now, the world was waiting for the moment when Paris would finally be free. In August 1944, the people of Paris decided they could wait no longer. Resistance fighters began an uprising. Barricades were built in the streets. French police stations were taken over. German troops inside the city suddenly faced attacks from everywhere. The citizens of Paris were fighting for their freedom. When Hitler heard about the uprising, he gave a shocking order. If Paris could not be held, it must be destroyed. German forces were ordered to prepare explosives. Bridges, monuments, and historic buildings could all be demolished. Hitler reportedly asked a terrifying question: "Is Paris burning?" But the destruction of Paris never happened. Allied forces were moving quickly toward the city. French General Charles de Gaulle insisted that French troops should be the first to enter Paris. On August 24, 1944, tanks from the French 2nd Armored Division reached the outskirts of the city. Crowds gathered in the streets. People began cheering. The liberation of Paris had begun. On August 25, 1944, Paris was officially liberated. German Commander General Dietrich von Choltitz surrendered the city. The people of Paris flooded the streets. Church bells rang across the city. Flags appeared in every window. After 4 years of occupation, Paris was finally free. Images of the liberation spread around the world. Crowds celebrating in the streets of Paris became a symbol of hope. For many people, this moment proved that the end of the war was coming. The liberation of Paris was more than a military victory. It was a powerful message. Nazi Germany could be defeated.